Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
The discussion of the ways and means of developing leadership. Any discussion on leadership needs to recognize that leadership is a process, a situation, a role which has been examined variously in different disciplines. The sociologists have studied leadership and tried to understand what makes a leader, what causes a person to emerge in a leadership role. The philosophers have tried to understand the meaning of leadership, and the same can be said of political scientists, and so it goes on. But the concept which we bring to bear upon leadership studies in management is a very different ball game altogether. We talk of a leader as a person in an organizational context. We do not discuss mass leadership here. We do not discuss the social basis of leadership. It is more the action and the operational oriented leadership that we will be talking about. Consistent with the definition that management is really decision making and problem solving with resource optimization. So, let us look at some of the definitions of leadership, so that the study is put in a context of lineage and a background of effort in an analytical mode. The definition by Locke talks of inducing others to take action towards a common goal and focuses on leadership as a process. There are other group of definitions, and they emphasize other special characteristics which we shall talk very briefly. The other dimensions talk of a great person as a leader, a great man as a leader. They talk of trait theory, they talk of psychological theories. The great man or the great person theory works on the basis that a leader is a born person with special qualities. Try to recall the debate in leadership, which is fairly universal. Are leaders born or are they made? The great man or the great person theory bases itself on a simple proposition that leaders are born. Leadership is not something which can be learned. These qualities set the leaders apart from other people, that is, their followers. Interestingly, there is another theory which says exactly the opposite. Anyone can be a leader. It goes on to establish a very simple proposition. There is no such thing as constant leadership. If leaders were to be made, then you would remain a leader for a lifetime. Then no leader will ever go into the oblivion. The counterpoint to that is, yes, your characteristics are the ones which you are born with to be a leader, but those characteristics may not be consistent with the times. and therefore, you go into an oblivion. Therefore, yes, it is true you are born with qualities of a leader and you cannot be made a leader by training, but then those qualities become irrelevant. The people who argue with this approach says, therefore, leadership is essentially situational. What is this business of leadership with qualities embedded in a person by virtue of his birth? Like many things in social sciences and management, you can have mutually exclusive theories, both of which have a reasonable following. In the ultimate analysis, the advice remains what it can be under such circumstances. You choose your theory upon your insights and you follow the theory which suits your needs. To get back to the description, therefore, of different theories of leadership, after the great person theory, there is the trait theory. Please read this. Now, therefore, you find in trait theory certain self contradictions, a failure to identify the traits, and yet you talk of the traits. In dealing with social sciences and in dealing with management, when it comes to theory, you must learn to walk through certain degree of ambiguity, because the nature of the subject itself creates that ambiguity. The substantive point which trait theory makes is that there are certain traits of a leader. What it also concedes is these traits can vary from situation to situation, from requirement to requirement, and it can be traits which have to do with ethnicity, kind of organization, the kind of situation, and indeed the kind of demand on the quality of decision making. Therefore, it is difficult to define absolute traits. Then we come to the psychological theory. The psychological theory and the many famous psychologists like Freud, Fromm, Erikson, Levinson, they all made attempts to explain leadership. They explained from some particular aspect of leaders. Leader as parents, leaders in crisis, the role of psychological distancing from followers for enhancing the leader's efficiency, and it is such a web of intellectual gymnastics that you are very impressed by it. But at the end of the day, how much you absorb from it for your own practice is going to be a factor of your own selection, a factor of your own ability to look at all that is available and identify what works with you. So, like many things in social sciences and in management, it is really a factor of what suits you. And if you think that is a strange characteristic of social sciences and management, you need a slight modulation to that view. Even physiologically, all medicines do not suit all people. There are certain medicines which work on certain people, and the same medicines do not work on somebody else for the same ailment. There is such a thing as a bodily chemistry, and the bodily chemistry changes. Now, if that is true of physical sciences, what is so strange about its being true of social sciences and decision theories? What you have to do, therefore, is to understand social sciences and management in the framework of reference which touch social sciences and management action, and then you will have a sense of peace in absorbing what is being said. There are other theories on what the leader does. There is the behavior theory. It focused on studying leaders' behavior so that it can be reproduced by followers. Now, again, the likely question to be asked from there is there a given behavior pattern of a leader? Indeed, it goes beyond and would also say, are there certain physical features of a leader? Does a leader have to be tall, strapping, well built? There is nothing in human history of decision making sequences which establish a certain physical trait for leadership. Napoleon, a great leader by any standards in decision making and problem solving, diminutive in size. Alexander, another great leader, very well built by all accounts. The statues of Kanishk would have us believe how well built he was. Descriptions of Chandragupta Maurya describe his physical powers. And different physical characteristics, behavior patterns, from soft spoken to harsh in behavior. And the reason why I am talking of public figures is to strike a chord in understanding leadership in terms of its traits and behavior patterns and personality features, with a shared database which would come from these public figures. If I were to start talking of specific corporate leaders only, then there would maybe some problems in establishing commonality of communication between me and you. I can't talk of a leader in Shapurji Polanji, I can't talk of a leader in Gas Authority of India 10 years ago. He may or may not be known to you, the images may not work. And I could name you many organizations where I could cite leadership examples, but they may not communicate. Therefore, I am citing to you names which you have heard of which you have certain mental image. Therefore, you can understand the theories of leadership which went into explaining their success. So, behavior theory is focused on studying leaders' behavior in terms of what is replicable, but you end up with a whole set of characteristics that some of them become mutually exclusive. Now, even that in behavioral sciences falls in place, because it can be explained by saying that no one has the same behavior in all situations. No one can possibly have the same behavior in all situations. Therefore, it is important to recognize that different leadership styles will be adopted by the same person, and it is possible he may have a leadership style which is even mutually contradictory, or on one stage he was very firm to the point of appearing almost directive. On another point he was so soft to appear almost to have no views of his own. So, there is the behavior theory and there is the interaction expectancy role theory. This theory exists in several versions. Its main idea is the key role of the followers, expectations of the leader and the leader's expectations of the follower, which is why it is called interaction expectancy theory. The interaction expectancy theory puts leadership in a dynamic relationship mode, and it propositions leadership as an active process between a leader and a follower. There is the exchange theory, which represents leaders followers relationship as mutually rewarding social exchanges. Rewards can be material or psychological. Material rewards would come by way of money, psychological rewards would come through approval. How does it convert itself into a work situation? And I will give you a crass example of exchange theory. Again, I knew of a very senior bureaucrat who had his secretary who developed exchange relationship with him. And what did it turn out to mean? The senior bureaucrat was constructing a house in a colony which was about 30 kilometers away from his place of work, and he never took a day's leave. Every time somebody would call for him, the secretary would double up with the standard explanations. Sir, he is in a meeting. Sir, he has just gone out of his room. Sir, he has been called by his boss. Sir, he will be coming any time. Sir, he had late lunch today, and there was a huge package of excuses which the secretary to this bureaucrat used to explain his absence from desk while he was focusing on the construction of the house. The senior bureaucrat doubled up for providing the same kind of protection to the secretary, who used to attend classes for doing a distance education course which had contact sessions and therefore got an extra degree. And in turn, whenever there would be a call for the secretary to the bureaucrat and somebody wanted to talk to him for whatever reason, the bureaucrat would say, he is gone out with my permission, will be back shortly, please call in the evening. Or I have sent him on an errand, he is not available just now. Or best still, he is in a discussion on something which touches the functioning of the department with other secretaries of his rank and will be back shortly. It looks like there is some common issue which they are sorting out. The list of reasons was endless. A situation of exchange where you entered into a mutually rewarding social exchange and both got a mileage. It is another story that they both got a mileage at the cost of the organization, but that is something which is inherent and obvious, and therefore, it is for you to understand that these things really can have a pernicious influence on the organization if just carried out as an exchange theory without keeping in mind the larger good. Then there is the perceptual and the cognitive theories. The perceptual and the cognitive theories focus on specific characteristic of leaders, that is perception and cognition. It has to do with cognitive and learning styles. Theories based on environment of the leadership. Yes, and there are very large number of theories in leadership. In fact, even at the end of the day, you would not have covered all the theories, but a cross section of them. Therefore, we better walk through with the key ones. There is the situational theory, which emphasizes the characteristics of the situation in which the leader has to act. Interestingly, the situational factors include leader's personality. In other words, each situation, even if there is a road fracas, some leader would emerge. Somebody, by virtue of his personality, the pitch of his voice, his ability to push, the ability to command, will emerge as a leader, and that leadership will melt away when that situation goes. And the illustration which I gave to you is an altercation on the road. So, that is a situational theory. Then there is the contingency theory. According to Fairholm, there are two versions of the theory. Path goal theory, which concentrates on the follower reactions to the leader behavior, and there is the contingency theory, which has to do with which concerns itself with the cluster of complex forces that affect leadership activity. Let me repeat that, which concerns itself with the cluster of complex forces that affect leader activity. There are the humanistic theories. Please read this. An interesting way of defining leadership, and which is why it is called a humanistic theory. Now, this puts together in a matrix form the relationship between success factors, the management dominated elements, and the leadership driven situation. The success factors can be competitive strategic advantage. The management dominated action will be pursue same game strategies, and leadership driven situation will be formulate the new game strategies. Formulation is a leadership characteristic, pursuit is a management process. Success factors are organizational culture and capabilities. Management dominated activities would be perpetuating cultures. The leadership driven situation would be creating cultures. The success factors may be external or internal change. The management factor will be strive for stability, and leadership may thrive on the crisis. So, there is an interactory relationship between the success factors, the management dominated factors, the leadership driven elements that are put in a certain relationship for you to understand the interactory situation, and if there are any takeaways, you are welcome. But the important thing here is your learning of the leadership situation and leadership process. I am going to pause there for you to absorb what this matrix puts out. That brings us to the study of leadership styles. The leadership styles may be determined by the psychological types. A manager's temperament, a manager's perception may define his psychological type, and that psychological type may determine his leadership style. The leadership style may be driven by the need factor. You need that relationship. You need the goodwill of the boss, therefore, you ingratiate yourself. You need the support of the subordinate to get the numbers on your side, therefore, you placate his demands. But needs can also be segregated, and let me show to you 4 different kinds of needs. First, there is an overall management need. The overall management need may be of achievement, dominance, affiliation. Yes, people do have a need to dominate. Some people have a huge urge for a control feeling. Some people have a huge urge for affiliation. They love to talk to others. They are gregarious by temperament. That will affect a leadership style. So, to put it briefly, there is the overall management need. Then there is the boss subordinate need. The boss subordinate need usually shows itself by the characteristics of autonomy, deference, nurturance, assistance, abasement, and the list is endless. There is no way in which we can cover all that here, but yes, I can draw your attention to the boss subordinate need defining management style. The interpersonal needs have to do with introspection, exhibition, aggression, and fulfillment of a psychological being of the individual, which determines his style. Some of us are prone to introspect repeatedly. Some others are pure and simple exhibitionist in style. They want the color of their mobile to match the color of your spectacles, to match the color of your dress. They derive a satisfaction in it. It can't be grudged. And this exhibitionism may not be the driving force of others. There may be others who simply do not care what color are the glasses, what color is the mobile, what color is the dress. To them it does not matter. In either case, without a value judgment, all that is being sought to be put across to you is these needs will determine the leadership style. Any person with exhibitionism will have a certain type of style of leadership, and so on and so forth. Yet another element in determining leadership style is the task factor. You may have entered the leadership situation when change was the requirement, when change was the order of the day, when change or requirement of an order was there, but really the situation was so difficult that you needed an endurance situation. The situation requires certain intensity of action, and that determined your leadership style. This can go on to apply to power bases, where you want influence, your approach to conflict and problem solving, your values, what is it that you hold ideal, what are your beliefs, and your reaction, your tolerance level to stress or pressure. A word which is very often emphasized in leadership situation is vision. Again, like so much else in social sciences and management, and this is a point which repeatedly has surfaced in this presentation and at times elsewhere. A lot of people emphasize visionary leadership. In fact, visionary leadership is supposed to be very desirable, and you have to see what Alex Hurd has to say on that. He says, I have heard the future and it is vague. Now, the kind of dig he is having at being visionary is obvious. What he is saying is, how can you be visionary when you do not even know what it would look like? And predictably, the retort is, it is only when you do not know what it looks like that you can be visionary. That is when you have a vision. Now, if you can resolve that debate, you have the answer. For our purposes here, I will confine myself to the key components of vision being normally understood as having a purpose or a reason for being. Being here means existing. It has to do with cultural beliefs and values. Yes, vision has something to do with the mission, and of course, it requires vivid description. That brings us to a popular description of some of the leaders, that is charisma. Now, here are three perspectives on charisma. Please read it very carefully. Now, three definitions have been given there, three perspectives have been shared with you on charismatic leaders. They all make a point in their own way. The important thing is to realize that charisma charismatic leadership usually applies to individuals who have acquired a leadership status and have that something which requires deference, without it being argued and without it being debated, people fall in place. Let me give you an illustration of charismatic leader meeting a popular situation and what happens. Mrs. Indira Gandhi, when out of power, reportedly moved to a bungalow in what is today the Mother Teresa Crescent and then used to be called the Wellington Crescent in Delhi, and operated from a bungalow there. She was also in some capacity the chancellor of one of the universities in Delhi. There was a student situation and about 100 of them landed in that bungalow compound and were shouting slogans. It was around 10:30 or so in the morning, and the crowd was on the verge of being what could be called rowdy, very noisy. And Mrs. Gandhi came out of the bungalow, stood on the steps, looked at the audience, straightforward center, looked at the right, her right, the left of the audience, turned around, looked at her left, the right of the audience, simply put up her hands and said, "My children, my children," and the audience quietened to listen to her. That anecdote illustrates what the power of a leader can be in terms of the effect it casts on the people who are relating to that leader. That is charisma. That charisma does not come and go by choice. That charisma does not work at will. It is an integral part of a human personality. Yes, and there are leaders with that charisma, but when it is charisma and when it is not is only an experiential feature. Then there are the super leaders. In 80s, the concept of a super leader emerged. Mans typically talked of the super leader, according to which the authors of the concept is a leader who leads others to lead themselves. The idea corresponds with that of Lao Tzu, who said, "A leader is best when people barely know he exists." Lao Tzu also said, "When his work is done, his aim is fulfilled." In fact, when he talks, they say, the followers say, "We did it ourselves." Now, that is a super leader. He makes everyone feel like a leader and relegates himself to a background. There are trait theories which we have already talked about. If you read through this, then I will move on. This is a repetition of what has already been shared with you, but in going on further with the discussion, I am bringing in John Cotter in the discussion to explain to you that there are attributes of this trait leadership which earlier on was left vague, and the attributes are intelligence, drive, mental health and integrity. And they define some minimum requirements for leadership in big jobs. To what extent that works is again an empirical feature. So, 5 traits that have consistently been found amongst leaders are the following. Now, these traits do not have anything to do with the trait theory, which is something quite apart. Please note that the trait theory is a philosophical point of view which is defined here. Summing up with, leaders are born, not made. But when I sum up the discussion, I want you to recognize that across theories, there are various characteristics that have been consistently found amongst leaders, no matter where they come from and no matter what they were. So, in developing a leader, these characteristics become very important. Let me show this to you. A leader has intelligence, no matter what theory you propound. More often than not, the most intelligent person in the group emerges as the leader. The leader has dominance. People who aspire to leadership usually end up in leadership. A leadership situation has self-confidence. Leaders exhibit self-assurance, they know where they are going and are confident in their ability to get there. A leader is supposed to have energy. I have never seen a lethargic leader. Leaders have the ability to see a task done to its completion. They have staying power. Leaders have task relevant knowledge. In their arena of leadership, they possess the skills and knowledge pertinent to success of the operation. The 3 constant characteristics of a leader are social skills, that is ability to communicate skills, cooperativeness, sociability and personal integrity. Ability to influence others, ability to fulfill organizational goals. These include characteristics like initiative, desire to excel, willingness to assume responsibility for the outcomes. So, what is it that you are hearing? You are hearing the distillation of the common elements through all theories, through all discussions, to all seemingly inconclusive debates, to lend specificity to the characteristics, to the definitions, operational features of a leader, so that you know what is the goal to be reached to develop as a leader. Warren Bemis put power at the core of leadership. He felt that leadership requires legitimate power, expert power, personality power, information power and reward and persuasive power. He listed 5 power characteristics for leadership. And if you have that, and if you can exercise it, you emerge as a leader. Or if you want to understand the leadership of someone, you will have to understand the legitimacy of his power, his expert power, his personality power. By expert power here is meant the referent power, because he knows the subject better, because he understands it better and is able to operate better in the circumstances that he is placed in, and incredible as it may sound, he knows how to negotiate with it. We move on from there to look at disqualifications for leadership. And John Gear identified 5 negative traits. Being uninformed, a leader never says, I did not know. Non-participation, oh, is that the situation? I think I will pass. I am giving you verbalized expression of this trait, so that you know how to move from the symptoms to the cause, how to do the analysis. Extreme rigidity, I like my shorts 2 size too small and I am not going to change it. Authoritarian behavior, my way or highway. Offensive verbalization, why, etc., etc., etc. Please avoid all this. if you want to be in a leadership situation. In other words, be informed, please be capable of participating, do not be extremely rigid. Yes, firmness is not the same thing as rigidity, but do not be extremely rigid. Do not indulge in authoritarian behavior, leaving people no choices. Once in a while, a little bit of authoritarianism may be required, but that cannot be a defining trait for all situations. And please, no offensive verbalization. The behavioral theories of leadership have suggested that leadership should not be defined in terms of traits, but rather by what the leaders do. Leaders influence their followers in 4 ways, and that is an integral ingredient of a behavioral perspective on leadership. A leader spreads hope. He does not overlook the problems, but he focuses on the solution. He focuses on how it works. A leader provides resources. A leader helps achievement of goals. A leader teaches skills for handling the situation in which the group is placed. These are ways in which a leader influences his followers. The leadership roles have different functions, and we need to walk through it too. A leader is a figurehead, the one who represents the organization to the public or to itself. A leader is a motivator and a trainer, the one who guides the development of the group by providing training and motivation. The leader does the liaisoning, the one who is adept at making and maintaining contacts with individuals outside of the immediate group. A leader is a monitor, the one who seeks out information and about the group and its performance by reviewing reports, attending meetings. A leader is a disseminator, one who relays information to subordinates through personal interaction, meetings, presentations, etc. So, he is a figurehead, he is a motivator, he does the liaison, he monitors, he disseminates. The list continues to include the leader being a spokesman who provides information about the group to the individuals outside and in the immediate work group. He is an entrepreneur, one who identifies opportunities and solves problems with creativity and vision. A leader is a disturbance handler, if a phrase can be coined, one who is competent in solving problems as they arise, including conflicts with the group. A leader is a resource allocator, the one who makes budgeting decisions, allocates funds for projects, and distributes personnel for organizational units. A leader is a negotiator, the one who mediating disputes between group members, and this is a very important leadership function. This raises a very important question on why anyone should follow a leader or why followers follow a leader. Summing it up, therefore, the reasons why people willingly follow others is open to understanding through a large number of perspectives. Because of the constraints in which we are placed, we may not be able to elaborate all the perspectives, but let me share with you one perspective which is most illuminating and has been found to exist for a very long period of time, at over 2 centuries as it were. It is the Aristotelian model of ethos, pathos and logos. What is ethos? Ethos is the leader's character, inherent or earned respect. People trust this leader based on experience and integrity. Ethos flows from who the leader is. That is ethos. Then there is pathos. What is pathos? The leader's compassion or commitment to his or her followers. People sense that the leader really cares for them and has their best interests at heart. We willingly follow leaders for how they make us feel. Logos. Logos is what a leader knows. This type of a leader has something to teach that will benefit the follower. A skill to be mastered, things to know. Usually, all these characteristics are required in all the leaders. It is their varying internal ratios and percentages which decide the leadership personality. To wind up further in yet another level, leaders can have autocratic style, leaders can have democratic style, leadership can be laissez-faire leaders, and if you recall the type of organizations and understanding organizations which we were doing, we refer to some of it there. Thank you so much for now.